Hey everybody, welcome to Playbook by Laserforce Loveland. This podcast is a platform for laser tag players to geek out about strategies, stories, and ongoings in the Laserforce scene, and for you to join us as another player at the table. My codename is Mischief. I'm a player from Loveland, Colorado, who loves to talk about tag, and tonight I am joined by Ender from California. Welcome, Ender.
Hello.
Sorry, I just asked you what city you're from. What city are you from?
San Diego.
San Diego. Love that place. I'd gotten on the call and met you, and I wanted to, I had so many questions for you right off the bat, and I had to stop and actually hit the record button. So, it's really nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been listening to the podcast for a bit. I very much enjoy listening to other people talk tag, so it's exciting to be here.
I heard that you were listening to this in preparation for the random draw.
Yeah. So I've been up to Lost Worlds a couple times with Sweets. We usually carpool up there, and he had mentioned the podcast on the way up one time. So for the past 6 months or so, I've been listening to old episodes on and off, all of the different top tips for Scout, Heavy, all that kind of stuff.
That brings me a lot of joy to hear. Are you aware the Resupply have a whole archive as well of that? Once upon a time, they did talk about laser tag and how to play it, and they have some good insights on there too.
Yeah. I've recently been starting to listen to their stuff a bit as well.
It is. It's really cool to, I think there's just been a feel around the community that California has just a lot of dead sites and homeless players. And it's really cool to hear that. It's really cool to see new players coming out of California. I think part of why I'm having you on is just the surprise of how of your showing at random draw, of course, but also just hearing you talk like you're clearly an avid, interested player.
Yeah. So I got into Laserforce pretty recently. Back in 2023, I met Sweets, and he was talking about it. Prior to that, I'd been playing Zone on and off until the Zone site down here closed down. But yeah, I got into it with Sweets. He invited me to the members' nights at San Marcos, and I started playing there and getting into it. So having already knowing how to play laser tag and having a couple hundred games under my belt, it was more so learning the roles and all that kind of stuff. So it was a easier ramp up than just someone who hadn't played before.
Yeah, what's that transition like from Zone to Laserforce?
There is a lot more to keep track of in Laserforce. In the Zone games, even on members nights, the most complicated would be you have to get both opponents' bases, and you have a set number of lives, right? There wouldn't be any ammo requirements, at least not in the games I played. So having to keep track of lives and ammo, and then keep track of the roles of different players, and kind of the flow of the game matters a lot more here. And another thing that I had to get used to a lot was resets. There in Zone, you get tagged, you're off, and then they can't tag you again until you're back on. But Laserforce, those resets really incentivize aggressive play. So when I was first learning it, you get punished a lot early because you don't set enough of a trail, and people just farm you.
Yeah, it's cool to hear, and it's interesting because from my perspective, as I started on Laserforce, obviously there's resets. Yeah, that's just how the games work. Definitely sounds from my impression is that it's there's a bit of a higher skill floor required with Zone as far as just being able to tag people, right?
Yeah. Accuracy is a lot more important, and where you tag people is important as well, because you get different points depending on where you tag. So that's something that's kind of transferred over here is I usually tag people in the front, even if other sensors are available, just because in Zone, front is worth 200, back 100, shoulders and phaser are 50. So if I'm basically trading 4 for 1 if I trade shoulder for front. So Yeah, that's been something I kind of carried over. And then the other thing that's like a major difference is in zone, when your pack is off, you can't just spam the trigger. If you pull it too early, there's like a penalty period of like about
Really?
a half second or so.
Huh.
So where your lights are on and other people can tag you and you can't tag them. So it becomes like a reaction time test for both players to when your lights turn on. Whereas in Laser Force, obviously there's that 4 seconds of people can tag you while your lights are off. So you have to like really make sure you're getting out of the way or going behind a wall or whatever you need to do.
Yeah, I can see how that would be an interesting dynamic in a totally different way from how we do it. Much more about patience and timing, whereas we're just like click, 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 just spamming it like it's an N64 controller.
Yep, yep.
So what do you think of Space Marines 5?
I really like it. I really like it. I think it adds a lot more dynamicism to the game. Just like having the different roles, having specials, and just it's a lot more to keep track of. You feel more a part of a team, at least for me personally, than like in zone. Because in zone, you can just kind of like if you're a really good player, you can just kind of go and solo and do your own thing than to like carry a team or control a space by yourself. But in Laser Force, because of the resets, because of the different roles and stuff, you really have to work with your teammates. So communication becomes significantly more important. So I really like that aspect of it. It feels like there's like a ton more to learn, and it doesn't feel, I don't know, to me, it doesn't feel as like solved. Like there's a lot more to grow in the scene.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Some games just have a bit of a ceiling as far as their complexity. You know, it's like checkers versus chess. Maybe that's not a great analogy, but one obviously has infinitely more possibilities, and people get very interested in that nuance. I couldn't make a whole podcast like this probably about a game mode where we were just tagging individual players and getting 2 bases. I just don't think there's enough to sink your teeth into.
Yeah, I think I agree there.
So, tell me about like how, what is your community like regarding Laser Force out in California, out in San Diego?
Yeah. So it's a relatively small community, I think. For the San Marcos site, we have about like 15 or so regular players. So if a couple people don't show up, then we're like running games like 5-on-6 or 5-on-5. But it's pretty good. There's a lot of players that joined kind of around the time I did, like a couple of years ago. So I think Sweets and Kodama have done a good job, like kind of coaching the new people up and getting them used to like the tournament rules and getting them used to like playing different roles and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty fun. I like it.
Nice. Sounds like there's consistent Space Marines 5 being played at that site, and you know, I think a couple other players.
Yeah. In terms of like alternative.
Oh, good.
Yeah, sorry. In terms of like alternative game modes, it's mostly Space Marines 5. We don't do a lot of other stuff like D&D or stuff like that.
Yeah, once people get the bug, they don't really play a lot of other game modes. And I think a couple of other players are from San Marcos as well. Is it Anchovy and what's the other guy? Evo Mike, right?
Evo Mike. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got to meet them this last summer in Loveland.
I think they joined around the same time I did. At least Anchovy did. I know Evo Mike used to play a lot back in the day, but yeah, Anchovy's been improving really fast. It's been cool to watch him from like when he first got there, and it's just like learning Space Marines till now. It's night and day.
How old is he?
Oh, I think he's 14, 15. He's still in high school at least. Or no, I think he's in 8th grade. So I think he's 13.
He seems pretty young to me, and yeah, he really impressed me too at the random draw recently. Speaking of, that's a good transition. You know, you just competed in this random draw. I wonder if you'd be willing to just kind of tell the tale from your end, how that whole tournament went, the tag and the community and fun stories. I may have some more questions for you as you go, but I could just tell you
Yeah,
that
yeah.
watching from the screen, like I had so much FOMO. It was crazy. Looked like a really good time.
Yeah, yeah. It was super fun for sure. Uh, the San Marcos squad, we kind of like coordinated our travel, so we got up there on like Sunday afternoon, a couple hours before they did the actual team draw. So we got to play a few games in the practice night before, which was super helpful. I got wrecked in several of those games. Really, it was a lot of learning the arena, because the San Marcos is kind of very linear in terms of how it plays, because there's like a two main ramps, and then there's like one side to go on each ramp for attack. You can either like go on the right side or the left side, and so in terms of like parallel pathing and stuff, if someone runs back, you'd have to run like around the entire half of the arena to try and parallel path them and get the extra shot. But in Syracuse, there's tons of walls that are very short, very like angled, so parallel pathing is like a way bigger deal. So I think that first night I got missiled like 6 or 7 times, and I was like, okay, I need to change change something up here. It's not good. But yeah, it's super fun learning a new arena, and I got to meet a ton of new players and play again with all of the people from up in Sacramento. I don't get to see them very often, just maybe occasionally on Lost Worlds nights. But yeah, it's a super fun time. Everybody I talked to up there was super nice, super like helpful, answering questions and talking about the arena. We had, I think, a couple people walked us through the arena, Cody and Beans, and yeah, everybody I
Those
think on
nerds.
my team as well. Yeah, yeah. So it was really nice of them to help us newer players out, and traveling players. So yeah, I was really happy with the first day, and then we saw the team draws, and as soon as I saw team draws, I was pretty happy because I had Kodama and Odin's Fist on my team. I'm like, oh, I think we're looking pretty good. And yeah, as soon as I met our other 3 Alex boxes, Assassin and Stealth Elf, I was like, oh man, our team's pretty stacked. So that felt really good. Yeah, overall a really good time. Please stop me at any time if you have any questions. I'm just rambling.
Oh my, yeah, no, I figured just letting you talk, you're going to tell a lot of really important parts, and I can go back and ask. I mean, obviously, the
Yeah,
tournament is a whole experience. I wonder if there were any standout games.
definitely. I had a couple of standout games. One of the standouts pre-finals was I had a commander game with Kodama and Odin's Fist as my 2 scouts. And when you have good scouts, playing commander is so much easier. Oh my goodness.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it was super nice because they both have like really good communication as well. So even though I wasn't the one leading the offense, but I felt like I had a good grasp on where everyone was, what everyone needed. And like Kodama would be calling out like, oh, heavy's down here, or we split the resupplies, so it's really, it makes it a lot easier to know when to drop your nukes and to know when to push, when to be at a different location when you have 2 like super high tier players helping you with those shots. So yeah, that game was super fun. The other game that stood out to me was in finals against Golden Pony Boys team, the team that ended up getting second. We played them in the upper bracket before either of us lost, and I drew heavy one game, and I forget who our commander was, but I drew heavy, and then the opponent's team, they had Brew as their commander, and I don't remember their heavy, but it's like total mismatch because Brew that whole tournament was just wrecking me. He was one of the two people that I just could not trade with for the life of me. So the reason I liked that game so much is because I drew heavy, and I think Odin's Fist took me over to
is this
like
the game you ended on
side,
one life with?
Yes,
I found
that's
it.
the
Yeah,
one.
you had Disco Box as commander for you.
Mhm.
Brew was enemy commander, and Do Not Pass Go Lenny was heavy on the other team.
Yeah, so they had A and B tier players as their heavy commander, and we had D and F as our commander heavy. And I think we won that game by 1,000 points, just barely.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
That is
So
crazy.
it was pretty insane. That game, I think I did like just well enough in the first half, and then once a couple of people had been eliminated, I found Odin's Fist, and we heard over the PA say that we were up by like 1,000 points, and we're like, and we knew the game was mostly done. We're like, all right, we need to just hold a spot, try not to die, hold out as long as we can, and we took red resupply, and I think for like a 2 minutes or so, we were just holding that spot. He was ammo that game, Odin's Fist, so I would pop out and get someone, he'd reset my shield, and we held there, not losing almost any lives for a couple minutes until Brew ended up getting a nuke and getting Odin's Fist out of that game. Yeah, I think with like maybe 60 seconds left or less, I had like 6 lives left, and I was hiding still in that red resupply area. I think Golden Pony Boy and Brew came around the corner. I tagged Pony Boy, and then Brew hit me down. I sprinted from red all the way to green base, and Pony Boy was just phaser behind the back, calling out my location the whole time, and I was just
Goodness.
Yeah, it was very intense, and I ended up barely like slipping them with like 12 seconds left after they had I think Brew had just tagged me down by red base, and I managed to slip away into the maze by the Edor and red resupply spot. So I think, yeah, I ended with 1 life left and like I don't know how many shots, but there's barely any shots.
34 shots actually.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tons of shots, no lives.
But
yeah.
my goodness, yeah. If you go on to the finals from EC2 25, it's their second to last game against Team Stay Golden Pony Boy. They're the green team, and this is insane. This is, I got on the pod. We did our little ranking show, and you know we idiots sitting in the sidelines watching don't know anything, and we just thought it'd be fun to throw out there, even if they were wildly inaccurate. And even so, I did absolutely call your team stupid, and I think it's stupid for looking at this score. Like, that's crazy. It spits on the logic that many SM5 players have when they think, what do I need to do to win games? What do I need to do to be good? You guys, I want to hear your perspective, obviously, but there is something that happened where you didn't need talented players like carrying you. You guys clearly worked together in some amazing way to pull off a lot of your games. What do you think it was that made your team so good? Because even in this matchup, like, your top 2 players were on resupply, and resupply is very important, but they're not as impactful as like having them on the 3 hit. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think the reason our team was able to win this tournament was our consistency. I think even I think I talked to Cody and some other people at the Syracuse site about Stealth Elf after the tournament, and they were saying that he was gonna kind of do better on a good team or worse on a bad team. And I could kind of see that. There were a couple games where he was running pretty low on lives. So, like, if 1 or 2 things go differently, he gets eliminated early and the game looks completely different. So I think having, even when our good players are on resupply, having them on resupply and having that kind of knowledge to say, like, even if you're not asking for lives, I'm going to give you some lives anyway, just in case.
Mhm.
That kind of helped out in a few situations that I think could have otherwise gone bad. Um, and I think, obviously, Odin is an excellent ammo, and I think having him back there kind of gives like like a good place for him to do a lot of shot calling.
Mhm.
And Kodama could play any role well, so I think, yeah, he didn't have to be on heavier commander because his scout was just as impactful because he was doing an excellent job of capitalizing off of nukes and coordinating with whoever the commander was at the time. I know, like, whenever I was commander and Kodama was scout, it was just, we had a field day. Like, we tore up their back line.
Mm.
Yeah, so even though I ended up rolling a lot of 3-hit games this tournament, I think like 10 commanders, 7 heavy out of our 28 or 26 games, something like that. Yeah, we got pretty lucky with just like all of our players were good regardless of position, rather than being good like only on 3 hits or only on resupply. So like that balance kind of helped us with the random draw aspect for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see what you're kind of describing, like Kodama and Odin bringing kind of this leadership, this communication, this structure. You know, I talked to Odin about how like he and Cayman, or they and Cayman would help out with like providing instructions on different roles. Here's the strategy. Here's what we're going to do in different areas of the game. And they said they were just working on communication in general. And it seemed like kind of what you said with Stealth Elf. All of you had a good support system to go off of, regardless of what happened, whatever you rolled. And everyone seemed like they had at least like competency in the arena.
Yeah. I think Assassin also played excellently, not just in 3-hit positions, but his medic was, I think, the best medic I've seen in Syracuse. He pulled some crazy games out. I think there was a game in like grand finals. I rolled heavy and he rolled medic and Kodama was ammo, and that game we were getting pushed by, I think, Snuffles, who was subbing in for Evil at that point, and one of the scouts. But Kodama ran off with Odin's Fist, who was our commander at that point, to start pushing up because we felt we were in the lead. And then Assassin is just like, yeah, you go too, Ender, go for it. I'm like, you sure? Yeah, totally. So he ended up sitting on being the only player on our team on the green side of the map and living the entire game. We come out of the game, he has a 3-1 hit diff against Snuffles. I'm just like, how did you do that? It's just witchcraft. I don't know.
I mean, in a way, that might be the best way to protect him. You can just hide and go into odd spots and go where people aren't expecting him.
Yeah, he had a good mastery of the arena. I think he was able to hit a lot of like wall shots. He knew like exactly where to stand. I think of our team, I think he was the most knowledgeable in the arena for sure, being a local.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously this tournament has sparked some discussion around player evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
How important do you think arena experience is for people?
I definitely think it's important. I think if I had another 10, 20, 50 games in that arena, I would definitely keep improving. But I think general skill of the game usually trumps arena experience. And so, like, if a player has played in multiple arenas before, adapting to a new one kind of comes a little bit faster to them. But yeah, it definitely makes a difference. Even like the one practice day makes a huge difference. Like from the San Marcos players, one of our players didn't get in until Monday morning, so they didn't get their practice day, Halange. And he had a rough time those first couple of games because he didn't have that, even one, 2 games of experience. So yeah, it definitely makes a difference, especially in the first couple of days of play. I think towards the end, it makes much less of a difference. There's like a significant drop off in how much it plays a factor.
I apologize to Halange. That's the first time I've heard anybody credible say your code name, and I've been purposefully mispronouncing it on the podcast, sort of as a joke, and to openly admit I didn't know how to say it. So, Halange, glad you can make it out as well. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When you talk about general skill, and this is a very open-ended question, what do you define that as? General skill at SM5?
General skill, I would kind of say the ability to like know where to be and like how to play the game to give your team like a good chance of winning. Like it obviously is very role dependent, but it kind of encompasses like the awareness and game sense type stuff. So even if you have good awareness, like having good awareness will make you learn the arena faster because like where you got shot from. It's like, okay, I can't stand in that position again, or I need to do something different, or the person could parallel path me here. I need to make a further trail or try to juke them or something. So having that kind of like situational awareness to know like what angles to be attacking from and like listening to like voice cues of both the game sounds and other players in the arena, right? Like if you hear someone saying that they need resupplies, it's probably a good time to pressure and keep attacking so they don't get that.
We've been having a few of these teams kind of like yours pop up over the last 5 years or so, where it's like good communication, good fundamentals, helping each other, kind of like 2v1ing good players, creating winning situations based on your positioning and your game sense, has begun to trump having a player that's just a solo carry, really good, really athletic, can do a lot by themselves, can make something out of nothing. Where I think, more traditionally, and I'm talking like 10 and beyond years ago, games were won a lot more with those kind of players. I don't know. I mean, does that kind of sum up, like when you talk about this game skill, it seems like everyone on your team had it to such a degree that even when not all of them have been like, world champions or even competing in very many competitive tournaments, you all were able to come together and play a really sound, meta, you might say.
Yeah. I think our team had a good like average skill per role, and I think we had like a good enough synergy going to, even if like one side of the arena is on fire and our offense is completely shut down or our resupply is constantly being flushed, the other side is kind of stable enough to where we can kind of regroup and hold out in a lot of games. One of the things I think our team did really well, and this may have been because our two like stronger players were put on resupply so much, is we didn't get eliminated very often. We only got eliminated, I think, like once or twice the whole tournament. So even in like matches where we lost the first game, we still had a good chance to come back in the second, just because we have a high average skill per player. So if we roll pretty well, if the other team doesn't roll as well, then we have a good shot.
What did you think of the Syracuse arena versus the San Marcos arena or the Lost Worlds arena?
I really like the Syracuse arena. I have played a lot of soccer in the past, so I like just running a lot. And I think the Syracuse arena rewards that quite a bit because there's so many ways to parallel path opponents and just keep someone shut down for a long period of time. So I really enjoyed it. I think it's relatively similar to Lost Worlds, just a few, like if you added a few more walls in Lost Worlds, made it a little bit more maze-like, then I think it would be very similar. But yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. it reminded me a lot of when I used to play Zone, and I could just kind of like playing Scout at Syracuse was very similar to just going around and tagging players in Zone. So yeah, playing the midfield there was very fun.
Yeah, I could definitely agree on that. It's definitely more of a hit diff arena rather than an elimination arena, which would I imagine you. I haven't been to San Marcos in almost 10 years, but that's more of an elimination arena from what I can tell, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I think there's not a lot of solid resupply fallback spots. So if your resupply gets flushed and they kind of keep the pressure up, you can die out real fast.
Definitely. Yep, have some memories of that. Screaming, crying for your lives, and we die. We weren't very good then. So how did the random draw finish, and what were the vibes?
It finished really good. I think the vibes were overall very positive. It was, I think, unfortunate that a couple players got sick, and then I think a couple players got injured as well. But that's, yeah, just kind of par for the course for a tournament where everyone's playing at 100%. You know, there's going to be people that get injured, and when there's a lot of people traveling from a lot of different places, the likelihood of someone getting sick also goes way up too. Yeah, I know when we got back, a lot of the San Marcos players were sick as well. So
yeah,
it's just how it goes.
At least they got it afterwards. But yeah, right. that really sucks to get sick and miss out on a tournament that you traveled to.
Yeah.
So, what did you think overall of the format of the random draw? And if you were ever to do another one, is there anything that you might want to do differently?
I did like the format. I think it kind of gives a lot of a hands-off feel, just because like the teams were made randomly and the roles are selected randomly. So like if you lose, you can just blame the random team or the random role or whatever the case may be. So losing doesn't feel nearly as bad in that way. I think a lot of the teams were really balanced, and depending on what the roles were, games could go either way. I don't think there was a team there that couldn't have beat us with a good roll, or that we couldn't have beat if we got a good roll. So that was a fun factor for me, that the amount of close games I really liked. The close ones are always the ones you remember, right? They're like super intense, barely winning, living with one life, that stuff. But yeah, I think for me, one thing I was thinking of and talking about with the other San Marcos players was instead of having each team randomize the roles separately, having one random draw and apply that to both teams. So that would make it so like both A tiers play Scout, both B tiers play Heavy, both C tiers play Commander, so on and so forth. And I think that would make for even more close games, right? Because you'd have players of the same tier playing the same role, while still getting newer players to play different positions that they might not get to play at their home site as frequently and stuff like that. So I think there's potential upside there. That being said, one of my favorite games of the tournament was when our D and F players were 3 hits versus another team's A and B. So like, you don't get that chance to overcome insurmountable odds, or like David versus Goliath type situations, if you're matching role for or tier for tier in the roles.
Yeah, you're completely right, because this game that you had with the one life against the Brew and Lenny combination, that's legendary. You can print that out and keep it somewhere in a trophy case for the rest of your life. Like, that is a huge achievement, and you wouldn't get that opportunity. There's definitely a beauty in the random draw, but at the same time, there's definitely a lot of games where it starts and you kind of predict how it's going to go, and then it goes pretty much that way. I'm definitely a proponent for even games are better for the players and the viewers. I think everyone's pretty happy with that situation.
For sure.
And we at Loveland, we're going to be starting up a season soon. We're going to get into teams, and for the next 6 weeks or so, we're going to be trying that actually. why it was funny because I heard that you had that idea, I think through or Aiden or something,
Mhm.
and our player Sergeant Tucker had suggested the exact same thing. What if we just like have them rotate the exact same positions and have your A versus A and B versus B, which is a little bit similar to like what the intention of the duos tournament we did a couple years ago was. Because yeah, just even games
Mm.
make everyone happy.
Yeah, yeah. I think for a tournament where you're not playing to win and you're playing like for fun and to like meet new people and enjoy playing laser tag together, having more close games is definitely better. So yeah, that's cool that you guys came to that same idea at the same time. How do these? You said you're starting a season. It's 6 weeks. That's pretty cool. How many teams do you guys usually get for stuff like that?
Right now we're getting anywhere between about like we're getting between like 15 to 20 players on a night. Now we've got a few that have been like sick or fluctuating in and out, some new players. So we're trying to see if we can get 4 teams of 5 or 4 teams of 6. We're even trying to call in some old names and get them back for a few weeks.
Nice, nice. Yeah, that sounds super fun.
Yeah, we hope we can make it happen in a great way. Um, and yeah, we'll just keep building up the new players. That's kind of the intention, right? Like you mentioned, when you're playing for fun versus playing to win. Some tournaments are definitely more of a growing or fun experience, and some like people go all out to win, kind of like Nats. Have you put any thought into attending either this year's Nats or a future one?
Yeah, yeah. I've put a little bit of thought into it. This year, I'm not sure if I'll be able to make, just because I mean it's in Australia, yeah, so it's
You can't
pretty
just
far.
drop everything and go to Brisbane. Come on, man.
Yeah, I wish. I do not have enough time off saved up to do a second week long laser tag trip this year. But yeah, in the future, definitely I'll be considering it.
Awesome. Let's see. Trying to think. So, kind of reviewed the whole tournament, and I don't know. I'm honestly like I don't have too much else I really wanted to ask you. I am actually kind of curious about the San Marcos site. Like they hosted an event in like 2016, and like we know that they're out there playing SM5, and I'm just gonna say like we are short on sites that are playing SM5 right now. Are any other players looking to come out potentially or kind of join the community?
Yeah, I know there's a few others that are interested. Most of them are still in like late high school though, so it might take another year or two. But I know Sweets has been trying to convince them to come out to tournaments. We'll see whether or not that comes to fruition. I know he's got a couple of them to come out to Lost Worlds a couple of times, but we'll see if we can get them out to Loveland or Cedar City or any of those other sites in the future. Not sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any kinds of tournaments that you really hope get hosted sometime in the next few years that you'd like to try?
Um, I think the concept of duos is really interesting. Like you mentioned, I haven't put like a whole ton of thought into it, but I think that would be pretty fun. I don't know what other kind of like one-off type tournaments have happened in this scene.
Yeah, so there's usually internationals every year. We used to do more like site-based tournaments. We've done tournaments where you like it's just like a Nats style tournament, but you either draft the teams or you do point buy. Um, I've heard of one where that maybe happened a long time ago, where players get shuffled around and their score from that last game carries with them, and you're trying to build up the highest total team score across the tournament. We've had duos and triples and random draw, of course. I think those are the big ones.
Gotcha. Yeah, duos sounds really fun. I think anything involved with drafting would be really interesting as well, because it comes a lot more down to what every individual like captain's perception of player strength is, rather than like for this tournament, people were ranked based on like an aggregate strength from like 5 different people's rankings. So like individuals' rankings might fluctuate a lot more. So you'd get, I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to see like people's different priorities of like how they structure a team like that. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, definitely in agreement with you. I think I think there may be potentially a general distrust in drafting because the fate of many gets put in the hands of the few, you know.
Yeah, that's fair.
But at the same time, I mean, and I have full respect for the people that put this together. I'm not going to say that there are too many better ways to like try to distribute the player skills across the 6 tiers, but you know, there seems to have been some discrepancies, and I think it would have at least been cool if the 6 captains got to pick the players on their team, trying to build some kind of a synergy. Because that's ultimately,
Yeah,
that seems to be one of the big advantages you guys had, was your team really synergized well, and other teams may not have so much.
right. We just happened to get 3 Syracuse players and 3 players from California. Because like I've played with Kodama before, I've played with Odin's Fist before, Lost Worlds. So like I kind of already knew how half the team was gonna play, you know. So that was pretty lucky.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Just that even from as little experiences you've had with them, like you know how they play, and we're able to adapt that to a new arena. That's honestly pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think I spend a lot of time thinking about laser tag, especially since the tournament. I've been riding that high win for the past month and a half. So yeah, it's been really fun.
Definitely. Well, to be honest, like I don't have too much else. Do you have any thoughts or questions or things that you want people to know, like from your experience?
Um, Nothing particular in terms of like want people to know. I do have a bit of an interesting thing for you. I know on your previous podcast you talked about like stats and average MVP and stuff like that.
Yep.
So I was curious after the tournament, and I did a couple of different like stats analysis type things of my own. One was like tallying up how many games each player in each tier for each team played per position to see like what was the average tier level of each team per position, which I think was a really interesting stat to look at because it shows you which teams had their DEF players on 3 hits more often, which teams had their like better players on or higher tier players on 3 hit positions more often and that kind of stuff. So
You had my curiosity, and now you have my attention.
yeah. So it ended up being that uh, the average rating, if you count like A through F as 1 through 6, the average rating of all of commanders on my team was like 4.1. The next highest was Sweet's team with 4, and then Rhea's team with 3.6. So my team had like the lowest tier players on commander most frequently. Combined with heavy stats as well, ours had like average rating of 4.27. And then I know Strictva's team had 4.25 because Grak played a crazy amount of heavy games this tournament. So yeah, I don't know. Just looking at that kind of stats was very interesting to me. I know I also with these same stats was able to see which players or which tiers got which positions based on like frequency, and there was a 50% chance that an F tier player got a 3-hit roll, like across all of the games, which is just crazy.
Yeah, what is the probability of that? I mean, that has to be ridiculous.
It's got to be very low. Yeah. So it was a 24.4% chance that a F tier would roll commander, 25.6 for heavy, and then of course the resub games were way lower to compensate, and the scouts a little lower as well. but yeah, that's like the most anomalous ones that stood out to me.
That is the beauty and the terror of playing a random draw. Like, you are putting your fate in the hands of chance, and that kind of weird stuff can happen.
Yeah, yeah. The other statistical analysis I did was purely for my team because I was curious.
Mm-hmm.
I took the average MVP per role for all the players on our team, and I listed out all of the permutations of our team. So, and then tried to like maximize for the highest total MVP.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really interesting as well. Here, let me share my screen really quick. I want to show you this. It's probably easier to look at. I apologize for the ugly colors, but
oh, no worries.
Yeah. So the interesting things that I found out of this was that Assassin was on all of our best teams. He was always the medic. So like his average medic MVP was 5 points higher than anyone else on our team.
That's insane.
He absolutely smurfed on medic. It's crazy. But yeah, I thought it's really interesting how you can see Odin's Fist also was like an excellent ammo. So most of the time it put him on ammo for all of our like higher tier or higher totals. Other players kind of bounced around a lot. So like Kodama, obviously he had high MVP in every role. So he had bounced from commander to scout or whatever. But yeah, I kind of wanted to get your opinion of like what do you think this is like potentially our best lineup or close to it with Kodama commander, as it disco boxes heavy, me and Stealth Elf on scout, Odin ammo, and assassin medic.
My goodness. First of all, you're one of my new favorite people. We're going to be best friends. Okay, I need to give two opinions because I got to go back to the first set that you gave me, talking about how your team had the lowest average player on commander, and yet you had the best team. Okay, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, okay, I see it now. Yeah. Okay, this is great evidence that teams need to be constructed by at least, if not one person, a shared vision of people, and that player value fluctuates so much depending on the people that are also on their team. Even in a random draw, the synergy between the six of you, since you had the 3 and 3, and it sounds like, because I'm getting to know you now, I know Odin and Cayman, and I hardly know Assassin. I don't know the other two, but you all sound like you're actually like agreeable, teamwork oriented, communicative people. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I would say so. I think like right before games, there was always a lot of joking. I think Stealth Elf and Disco Boxes had like great senses of humor, and Kodama and Odin were always really relaxed before games, which kind of helps with our like easing the nerves and tension. So yeah, we had a really, really chill team, I would say.
I would just be so curious of an alternate universe where one of your like 3 through 6 players, one of your C through F players was replaced by somebody else within their same tier, if it would have brought your entire team's performance down. Like, if you just threw in one person who did not synergize with the rest of you, what would that have done?
Right. Yeah. I think it would have made a fair bit of difference, honestly, because one of our other strengths was that our entire team was pretty fast. Like, Kodama's really fast, Odin's pretty fast, Assassin's fast, me and Stealth Elf, Disco Boxes, all players that can move pretty fast when needed. So, like, when they flush the resupply, or when we need to like go run around a corner to cancel a nuke or rush in because the heavy's down, we all had the speed and like athletic ability to capitalize on these kinds of plays.
Gosh, this is a really awesome spreadsheet. I think it should be put out there. Like, this this guy might be willing to share if you message him on Facebook or something. This is great. Definitely it like continues to add to what we know about how to evaluate player value. Because yeah, you guys synergizing the way you did added a lot to you and the rest of you. Go back to the other one then. So teams by MVP. Like, so you're saying that would be your best lineup, the one that you suggested. This is this will be very up for debate. This is very this is per player, because something I would say is you do also need to recognize the different weight that different classes play in different arenas.
Absolutely. I wouldn't say this is our best lineup for any arena, and obviously these stats are imperfect as well. I know.
Of course.
Somehow Stealth Elf did not play a single game of ammo over the entire tournament, so his average MVP there is 0 because there's no games.
That's funny.
And Disco Boxes was spamming shots at the ground every time he got ammo because he was going for the melted gun achievement.
That's great. But I don't know if I were to give an honest assessment, and so again I'll just caveat, like this would just be my opinion if I were like building this team. Syracuse is a large arena. You usually don't win by elimination, you win by outscoring the other team, so high hit diff is something I'd really prioritize. Now getting good resupply is important. Resupply that can defend themselves is important, but to be honest, I don't think it's as important as it would be in a small arena like potentially San Marcos, where that ammo and medic might be getting, sieged upon constantly. Whereas in Syracuse, right, I would say the pacing of that sieging is a little more spaced out. Now, maybe I shouldn't say anything because Odin and Cayman were constantly playing resupply, and clearly it was a major backbone for your team. You had lots of great communication out of there. But I definitely want those two on 3-hit, regardless of what the MVP says, just because I fundamentally believe that the 3-hits have more ability to impact the game than the other players because of their shield, their abilities, the shot power. The nukes are devastatingly powerful. But at the same time, there's an argument to be made that, like, well, maybe putting a player who can do the fundamentals of Commander on Commander will allow you to put more of the nuanced experience onto Scout or Resupply and bolster that. It really depends. That's a hard discussion. I could go for an hour on that, building different lineups.
Yeah, I'm sure. And keep in mind, these are all not perfect statistics either, based on the fact that like maybe it happened that like my commander scores are boosted because I was playing against weaker heavies, right? Because of the randomness of this tournament makes these stats less reliable because of the sample size. So that's another caveat in this data. But yeah, I think it's just an interesting exercise. I was just curious to see what would turn out when I did this.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I love it. And I did something quite similar. I wonder if maybe I should pull it up now. When I was building the Loveland A team for Nats 24, I mean, I did the exact same thing, actually. I took, let's see, these have not been pulled out for months and months and months. But I did take the MVP, and I did sort of like average out, like, what would give us the most bang for our buck across all 6 positions, rather than just like, oh, put your best 2 players on Commander and Heavy and just call it a day, because synergy really matters. And I think that was a huge part of our team. Like, we put a lot of emphasis on resupply because we knew they would be sieged a lot, and they brought communication, leadership. They could reset 3 hits like no one else in the tournament could. It was like these specific traits played out in such a way that it was ultimately like, yeah, definitely the best lineup.
Yeah. Obviously, stats don't tell the whole story, but it's a good starting point, and it can kind of point you in the right direction to like what the best lineups might be. So, like, for example, even if these aren't our best lineups, the lineup you were talking about with Kodama, Commander, Odin's Fist, Heavy is right up here as well. This is only like 4 down from the theoretical best according to the computer. So
Let's see. I don't know what you're getting from me. Let's see. Yeah, can you see that?
Let me see.
So what I've got pulled up for Ender here is my.
Oh yeah.
This is my super secret Nats 2024 scratch pad, and Ender's the first person to see it ever since the tournament.
Nice.
I think the Fear Turkey might be the only other person I've shown this to. So up front, I have my simplified lineups, and then I've got over here, I've got commander stats. And so the thing I did is, I really value stats because they're objective information. I took all the stats and I prioritized them by how much I care about them. Like I gave average MVP a ×2 multiplier in my L score, quote unquote, my Luke score, just how much I personally value them, ×2 for medic hits on the commander roll. Average accuracy, I made it half value. And then I broke everyone into tiers based on each stat. Like, were you in the top tier of this stat versus the bottom or the second tier or third tier of that stat? And then you got to see different ways that players are strong in one area but weak in another.
Right.
And then I kind of grouped them into these archetypes. I gave them, like, if I were to make us each a video game character, like just fine, I'll just give a little tidbit. This is all very secret, but like my archetype name for Josiah's commander was the Predator, because he is one of the absolute highest in medic kits, high in missiles. He's good at trading and solo pushing. I gave myself the name of the Tank archetype. I have the highest win rate by a high margin. I have a high hit diff. I'm good at farming. And so I know kind of more specifically, like, what does that kind of player bring to that role specifically? And then I really simplified it over here with the color coding. And so part of people were like, oh, put Josiah on commander. He's your best commander. Well, Josiah is our best commander. However, I ultimately found Josiah was also our best heavy by a much wider margin than he was our best commander. So he ended up on heavy. And that's how we got to that's partially how we got to these roles ultimately.
Nice. Yeah, it's very clear you put a lot of thought into this. That's super cool.
Yeah, I'm a nerd. Love it. And somewhere in here I got synergy calculator too. This may be partially, like you were talking about this earlier. So when you plug the players into these 6 spots, we've got a full roster here. It breaks down the synergies. It shows you, okay, so here's your offense, the Commander Scout. And you mentioned what it was like to play with Odin and Kodama when they were your scouts and you were commander. It seemed to really bolster you, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then like heavy ammo, commander heavy, ammo medic, scout, like these things, these positions specifically amplify each other a lot more than other positions tend to. At least in my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, to answer your question, like, that's complicated. The numbers indicate that that definitely might be one of the best lineups you could possibly put together as far as building a team that's good across the board. But it's it's based on what plan do you want to put together.
Right. So this just kind of shows MVP. We might want to put more weight on like the commander being a better player, or heavy being a better player, or like clean up the stats in some way to get like a better idea of make them more representative. Like, for example, the ammo stats being distorted here. But yeah, I don't know. It's just an interesting exercise.
Oh, totally. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome you put that together, and I appreciate you showing me.
Yeah. All for fun.
Yeah, for sure. Because, this is that's ultimately the fun of SM5. There, again, kind of back to the point at the beginning, you can sink your teeth into this game so deeply on so many levels. And it sounds like you've caught the bug, so I apologize. Welcome.
Yeah, gonna be here for a while, it seems.
Well, maybe that's a good place to wrap up. I would just ask you, Ender, is there anything, if there's one thing you want players to take away from this discussion, what would it be?
I would say focus on your love of the game. I think this game has a lot of things to like about it, and there's definitely some negative parts as well. But if you focus on the parts you enjoy, it'll be a lot easier to keep doing it. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing I would take is that I want people to take that we are still figuring out how to evaluate player value and ultimately how to build the best teams. It seems like this is an actively evolving skill, an actively evolving art maybe, or science that we're figuring out. So keep learning and experimenting and be open to getting ahead of the pack.
Definitely.
All right, well, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks for coming on, Ender. Really nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Take care.
Bye, everyone.